Hey there, folks! Welcome back to our channel, where we explore the fascinating world of insects. Today, we're diving deep into the world of ants, covering their history, etymology, taxonomy, evolution, distribution, diversity, morphology, life cycle, behavior, and their relationship with humans. Ants have been around for over 140 million years, and their name is derived from the Greek word myrmic, meaning a little mouse. They belong to the order Hymenoptera, which includes bees, wasps, and sawflies. Ants have evolved from wasp-like ancestors and are now the most successful insect group on Earth, with over 15,000 species. Ants are found on every continent except Antarctica, and they come in various shapes and sizes. They have a complex life cycle, and their behavior is fascinating. From their intricate social structures to their role in ecosystems, ants are truly amazing creatures. Thanks for joining us on this antastic journey. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more insect-related content. Until next time, keep exploring. Ants are eusocial insects of the family Formicidae and, along with the related wasps and bees, belong to the order Hymenoptera. Ants evolved from vaspoid wasp ancestors in the Cretaceous period. More than 13,800 of an estimated total of 22,000 species have been classified. They are easily identified by their geniculate, elbowed antennae and the distinctive node-like structure that forms their slender waists. Ants form colonies that range in size from a few dozen individuals often living in small natural cavities to highly organized colonies that may occupy large territories with sizable nests that consist of millions of individuals or into the hundreds of millions in super colonies. Typical colonies consist of various castes of sterile, wingless females, most of which are workers' ergots, as well as soldiers' dinergates, and other specialized groups. Nearly all ant colonies also have some fertile males called drones and one or more fertile females called queen's gins. The colonies are described as superorganisms because the ants appear to operate as a unified entity, collectively working together to support the colony. Ants have colonized almost every landmass on Earth. The only places lacking indigenous ants are Antarctica and a few remote or inhospitable islands. Ants thrive in moist tropical ecosystems and may exceed the combined biomass of wild birds and mammals. Their success in so many environments has been attributed to their social organization and their ability to modify habitats, tap resources, and defend themselves. Their long coevolution with other species has led to mimetic, commensal, parasitic, and mutualistic relationships. Ant societies have division of labor, communication between individuals, and an ability to solve complex problems. These parallels with human societies have long been an inspiration and subject of study. Many human cultures make use of ants in cuisine, medication, and rites. Some species are valued in their role as biological pest control agents. Their ability to exploit resources may bring ants into conflict with humans, however, as they can damage crops and invade buildings. Some species, such as the red imported fire ant Solenopsis invicta of South America, are regarded as invasive species in other parts of the world, establishing themselves in areas where they have been introduced accidentally. Etymology: the word ant and the archaic word emet are derived from anti, enid of Middle English, which come from met of Old English. These are all related to Low Saxony emount, emp and varieties Old Saxon emeta, and to German emes Old High German memesa. All of these words come from West Germanic *myjon, and the original meaning of the word was the biter from Proto-Germanic *, off, away plus mate cut. For 5, the family name Formicidae is derived from the Latin formica, and 6 from which the words. In other Romance languages, such as the Portuguese formiga, Italian formica, Spanish hormiga, Romanian fernic, and French formi are derived. The study of ants is called myrmecology, from ancient Greek mu e ro mu edishi myrmex ant. It has been hypothesized that a Proto-Indo-European word morwi was the root for Sanskrit vamra, Greek mu-i romu edishi murmex, Latin formica, Old Church Slavonic mraviji, Old Irish moirb, Old Norse mor, Dutch meyer, Swedish myra, Danish meyer, Middle Dutch mir, and Crimean Gothic mira. 7-8. Taxonomy and evolution. The family Formicidae belongs to the order Hymenoptera, which also includes sawflies, bees, and wasps. Ants evolved from a lineage within the stinging wasps, and a 2013 study suggests that they are a sister group of the Apoidea. 9. However, since Apoidea is a superfamily, ants must be upgraded to the same rank. 10. A more detailed basic taxonomy was proposed in 2020. 3 species of the extinct mid-Cretaceous genera Camelomecia and Camelosphecia were placed outside of the Formicidae, in a separate clade within the general superfamily Formicoidea, which, together with Apoidea, forms the higher-ranking group Formicopoidina. 2. Fernandez et al. 2021 suggests that the common ancestors of ants and apoids within the Formicopoidina probably existed as early as in the end of the Jurassic period, before divergence in the Cretaceous. 10. The superfamily Chrysidoidea is a very large cosmopolitan group, all of which are parasitoids or kleptoparasites of other insects. There are 3 large, common families: Bephalidae, Chrysitidae, and Dryinidae, and for small, rare families Emblemmidae, Plumeridae, Sclerogybidae, and Scolbithidae. Most species are small 7 mm or less, almost never exceeding 15 mm. This superfamily is traditionally considered to be the basal taxon within the Aculeata, and, as such, some species can sting, though the venom is harmless to humans. Members of the families Dryinidae and Emblemmidae are the only parasitoids among the Hymenoptera to have a life cycle in which the wasp larva begins its life inside the body of the host, and then later forms a sac called a thalassium that protrudes out of the host's abdomen. The closely related family Sclerogybidae contains more traditional ectoparasitoids, attacking the nymphs of web spinners. The extinct, monotypic family Plumalexidae was described in 2011 from fossils preserved in Turonian age New Jersey amber. 1. The Vespidae are a large, nearly 5,000 species, diverse, cosmopolitan family of wasps, including nearly all the known eusocial wasps, such as Polistes fuscatus, Vespa orientalis, and Vespula germanica. Wasps. 1. Each social wasp colony includes a queen and a number of female workers, with varying degrees of sterility relative to the queen. In temperate social species, colonies usually last only 1 year, dying at the onset of winter. New queens and males drones are produced towards the end of the summer, and after mating, the queens hibernate over winter in cracks or other sheltered locations. The nests of most species are constructed out of mud, but Polistens and Vespines use plant fibers, chewed to form a sort of paper, also true of some stenogastrines. Many species are pollen vectors, contributing to the pollination of several plants, being potential or even effective pollinators, while others are notable predators of pest insect species, and a few species are invasive pests. 3-4. The subfamilies Polistinae and Vespinae are composed solely of eusocial species, while the Eumeninae, Euperiginae, Galinae, Musarinae, and Zethinae are all solitary, with the exception of a few communal and several subsocial species. The Stenogastrinae are facultatively eusocial, considering nests may have one or several adult females, in cases where the nest is shared by multiple females, typically a mother and her daughters. There is reproductive division of labor and cooperative brood care. 5. In the Polistinae and Vespinae, rather than consuming prey directly, prey are premasticated and fed to the larvae, which in return produce a clear liquid with high amino acid content for the adults to consume. The exact amino acid composition varies considerably among species, but it is considered to contribute substantially to adult nutrition. 6 fossils are known since aption of the early Cretaceous, with several described species from Cretaceous amber. 7. The adults resemble ants and may be confused with them. They are yellowish with red or brown markings, but may be all brown in color. Winged species are usually nocturnal, while wingless or reduced wing species are mainly diurnal. They are solitary, and the larvae are ectoparasitic on orthopteran nymphs. Adults have the tips of 2 or more antennal segments with spines. The hindwing, when present, has distinct claval and jugal lobes. The metatibia has a calcar or curved spur. Phoropelosoma is a New World genus 17 spp, with most species from Central and South America. Olyxin 26 spp is distributed through Africa and Australia and the New World. Paniscamuma 11 spp is known from India, Madagascar, Africa, and Southeast Asia. 5-6. Most species of Liosphex 14 spp are found from the southern U.S. to Central and South America, with one species, L. trichoplarm, known from the Philippines and Indonesia. Messerhopelosoma surae is a fossil known from Brazil. 7. Wasps in the family Pompilidae are commonly called spider wasps, spider hunting wasps, 1 or pompilid wasps. 2. The family is cosmopolitan, with some 5,000 species in 6 subfamilies. 3. Nearly all species are solitary, with the exception of some group nesting Agenia lenifor, and most capture and paralyze prey, though members of the subfamily Sauropolinae are kleptoparasites of other pompilids, or ectoparasitoids of living spiders. 5. In South America, species may be referred to colloquially as marabunta or marimbondo, though these names can be generally applied to any very large stinging wasps. Furthermore, in some parts of Venezuela and Colombia, it is called matacabalos, or horse killers, while in Brazil some particular bigger and brighter species of the general marimbondo kind might be called fechagola, saragola, or throat locker. Velvet ants Mutilidae are a family of more than 7,000 species of wasps whose wingless females resemble large, hairy ants. Their common name velvet ant refers to their resemblance to an ant and their dense pile of hair, which most often is bright scarlet or orange, but may also be black, white, silver, or gold. Their bright colors serve as aposematic signals. They are known for their extremely painful stings. The sting of the species Dacimutilla klugi rated a 3 on the Schmidt Pain Index and lasts up to 30 minutes and has resulted in the common name cow killer or cow ant being applied to the species Dacimutilla occidentalis. 2. However, mutilids are not aggressive and sting only in defense. In addition, the actual toxicity of their venom is much lower than that of honeybees or harvester ants. 3. Unlike true ants, they are solitary and lack complex social systems. For the Tipidae, also known as Typiid wasps, 1. Flower wasps, to note 1, or Typiid flower wasps 3, are a family of large, solitary wasps whose larvae are parasitoids of various beetle larvae, especially those in the superfamily Scarabeodea. 4. Until recently, this family contains several additional subfamilies, but multiple studies have independently confirmed that these comprise a separate lineage and are now classified in the family Thynidae. 5-6. The females of some Brachycystidine are wingless and hunt ground-dwelling fossorial beetle larvae. 4. The prey is paralyzed with the female's sting, and an egg is laid on it, so the wasp larva has a ready supply of food. As some of the ground-dwelling scarab species attacked by typiids are pests, some of these wasps are considered beneficial as biological control agents. 7. The Chiphetidae are a family of wasps with wingless females similar to the Mutilidae, differing most visibly in the presence, in females, of a suture separating the pronotum from the mesonotum. These species are found primarily in arid regions in the southwestern United States and adjacent regions in Mexico. The Scolidae, the scoliid wasps, are a family of wasps comprising about 560 species worldwide. They tend to be black, often marked with yellow or orange, and their wing tips are distinctively corrugated. Males are more slender and elongated than females, with significantly longer antennae, but the sexual dimorphism is not as apparent as in many of the Typidae and Antennae. The superfamily Apoidea is a major group of over 30,000 species within the Hymenoptera, which includes to traditionally recognized lineages, the sphecoid wasps, and the bees. Molecular phylogeny demonstrates that the bees arose from within the traditional Crabernidae, so that grouping is paraphyletic, and this has led to a reclassification to produce monophyletic families. One Aculeata is an infraorder of Hymenoptera containing ants, bees, and stinging wasps. The name is a reference to the defining feature of the group, which is the modification of the ovipositor into a stinger. However, many members of the group cannot sting, either retaining the ovipositor or having lost it altogether. A large part of the clade is parasitic. This group includes all of the eusocial hymenopterans. It is theorized that the possession of a venomous sting was important in the repeated evolution of eusociality within Hymenoptera. The oldest aculeates are known from the late Jurassic Carabasto Formation of Kazakhstan, represented by the family Bethylonomidae, which may be para or polyphyletic. 1. Relationships of ant subfamilies. In 1966, E.O. Wilson and his colleagues identified the fossil remains of an ant Sphecomerma that lived in the Cretaceous period. The specimen, trapped in amber dating back to around 92 million years ago, has features found in some wasps, but not found in modern ants. 15. The oldest fossils of ants date to the mid-Cretaceous, around 100 million years ago, which belong to extinct stem groups such as the Haedomyrmecinae, Sphecomerminae, and Zygrosemecinae, with modern ant subfamilies appearing towards the end of the Cretaceous around 80 to 70 million years ago. 16. Ants diversified extensively during the angiosperm-terrestrial revolution. 17. And assumed ecological dominance around 60 million years ago. 18. 1920 some groups, such as the Leptonillinae and Marshallinae, are suggested to have diversified from early primitive ants that were likely to have been predators underneath the surface of the soil. 1321, during the Cretaceous period, a few species of primitive ants ranged widely on the Laurasian supercontinent, the northern hemisphere. Their representation in the fossil record is poor, in comparison to the populations of other insects, representing only about 1% of fossil evidence of insects in the era. Ants became dominant after adaptive radiation at the beginning of the Paleogene period. By the Oligocene and Miocene, ants had come to represent 20 to 40% of all insects found in major fossil deposits. Of the species that lived in the Eocene epoch, around 1 in 10 genera survive to the present. Genera surviving today comprise 56% of the genera in Baltic amber fossils early Oligocene, and 92% of the genera in Dominican amber fossils apparently early Miocene. 1820 to termites live in colony. East and are sometimes called white ants, but termites are only distantly related to ants. They are the suborder Isoptera, and together with cockroaches, they form the order Blatidea. Blatideans are related to mantids, crickets, and other winged insects that do not undergo complete metamorphosis. Like ants, termites are eusocial, with sterile workers, but they differ greatly in the genetics of reproduction. The similarity of their social structure to that of ants is attributed to convergent evolution. 23 velvet ants look like large ants, but are wingless female wasps. 24-25. Distribution and diversity number of species. 26 neotropics to 1,162 Nearctic 580 Europe 180 Africa 2,500 Asia 2,080 Melanesia 275 Australia 985. Polynesia 42 ants have a cosmopolitan distribution. They are found on all continents except Antarctica and only a few large islands, such as Greenland, Iceland, parts of Polynesia, and the Hawaiian Islands lack native ant species. 27-28. Ants occupy a wide range of ecological niches and exploit many different food resources as direct or indirect herbivores, predators, and scavengers. Most ant species are omnivorous generalists, but a few are specialist feeders. There is considerable variation in ant abundance across habitats, peaking in the moist tropics to nearly 6 times that found in less suitable habitats. 29. Their ecological dominance has been examined primarily using estimates of their biomass. Myrmecologist E.O. Wilson had estimated in 2009 that at any one time the total number of ants was between 1 and 10 quadrillion short scale, i.e., between 1015 and 1016, and using this estimate, he had suggested that the total biomass of all the ants in the world was approximately equal to the total biomass of the entire human race. 30 more careful estimates made in 2022, which take into account regional variations, puts the global ant contribution at 12 megatons of dry carbon, which is about 20% of the total human contribution, but greater than that of the wild birds. And this study also puts a conservative estimate of the ants at about 20 times 1015 20 quadrillion. 31. 30 to 33 ants range in size from 0.75 to 52 millimeters, 0.030 to 2.0 in. 30 for 35, the largest species being the fossil Titanomyrma giganteum, the queen of which was 6 centimeters to plus 12 in long with a wingspan of 15 centimeters 6 in. 36 ants vary in color. Most ants are yellow to red or brown to black, but a few species are green and some tropical species have a metallic luster. More than 13,800 species are currently known. 37, with upper estimates of the potential existence of about 22,000. See the article list of ant genera with the greatest diversity in the tropics. Taxonomic studies continue to resolve the classification and systematics of ants. Online databases of ant species, including AntWeb and the Hymenoptera name server, help to keep track of the known and newly described species. 37. The relative ease with which ants may be sampled and studied in ecosystems has made them useful as indicator species in biodiversity studies. 38. 39. Morphologidiagram of a worker ant Neoponera varini. Ants are distinct in their morphology from other insects in having geniculate elbowed antennae, metapleural glands, and a strong constriction of their second abdominal segment into a node-like petiole. The body is divided into 3 distinct sections formerly known as tagmata: the head, mesosoma, and metasoma. The petiole forms a narrow waist between their mesosoma thorax plus the first abdominal segment, which is fused to it, and gaster, abdomen less the abdominal segments in the petiole. The petiole may be formed by 1 or 2 nodes, the second alone, or the second and third abdominal segments. 40. Tergosternal fusion, when the turgid and sternite of a segment fuse together, can occur partly or fully on the second, third, and fourth abdominal segment, and is used. Fourth abdominal tergosternal fusion was formerly used as character that defined the poneromorph subfamilies, Ponerinae, and relatives within their clade. But this is no longer considered a synapomorphic character. 41. Like other arthropods, ants have an exoskeleton, an external covering that provides a protective casing around the body and a point of attachment for muscles, in contrast to the internal skeletons of humans and other vertebrates. Insects do not have lungs. Oxygen and other gases, such as carbon dioxide, pass through their exoskeleton via tiny valves called spiracles. Insects also lack closed blood vessels. Instead, they have a long, thin, perforated tube along the top of the body called the dorsal aorta that functions like a heart and pumps hemolymph toward the head, thus driving the circulation of the internal fluids. The nervous system consists of a ventral nerve cord that runs the length of the body, with several ganglia and branches along the way reaching into the extremities of the appendages. 42. Headbull ant showing the powerful mandibles and the relatively large compound eyes that provide excellent vision. An ant's head contains many sensory organs. Like most insects, Ants have compound eyes made from numerous tiny lenses attached together. Ant eyes are good for acute movement detection, but do not offer a high-resolution image. They also have 3 small ocelli simple eyes on the top of the head that detect light levels and polarization. 43. Compared to vertebrates, ants tend to have blurrier eyesight, particularly in smaller species. 44. And a few subterranean taxa are completely blind. 12. However, some ants, such as Australia's bulldog ant, have excellent vision and are capable of discriminating the distance and size of objects moving nearly a meter away. 45. Based on experiments conducted to test their ability to differentiate between selected wavelengths of light, some ant species such as Camponotus blandus, Solenopsis invicta, and Formica cunicularia are thought to possess a degree of color vision. 46. Two antennae feelers are attached to the head. These organs detect chemicals, air currents, and vibrations. They also are used to transmit and receive. The head has 2 strong jaws, the mandibles, used to carry food, manipulate objects, construct nests, and for defense. 42. In some species, a small pocket infrabuccal chamber inside the mouth stores food, so it may be passed to other ants or their larvae. 47. Mesosoma, but the legs and wings of the ant are attached to the mesosoma thorax. The legs terminate in a hooked claw which allows them to hook on and climb surfaces. 48. Only reproductive ants, queens and males, have wings. Queens shed their wings after the nuptial flight, leaving visible stubs, a distinguishing feature of queens. In a few species, wingless queens ergotoids and males occur. 40. To metasoma, the abdomen of the ant houses important internal organs, including those of the reproductive, respiratory trachea, and excretory systems. Workers of many species have their egg-laying structures modified into stings that are used for subduing prey and defending their nests. 42. Polymorphism, 7 leafcutter ant workers of various castes left and to queens right. In the colonies of a few ant species, there are physical castes workers in distinct size classes, called minor microgates, median, and major ergates, macrogates. Often, the larger ants have disproportionately larger heads and correspondingly stronger mandibles. Although formally known as dinergates, such individuals are sometimes called soldier ants because their stronger mandibles make them more effective in fighting, although they still are workers and their duties typically do not vary greatly from the minor or median workers. 49. In a few species, the median workers are absent, creating a sharp divide between the minors and majors. 50. Weaver ants, for example, have a distinct bimodal size distribution. 51. 52. Some other species show continuous variation in the size of workers. The smallest and largest workers in Carabara diversa show nearly a 500-fold difference in their dry weights. 53. Workers cannot mate, however, because of the haplodiploid sex determination system in ants. Workers of a number of species can lay unfertilized eggs that become fully fertile, haploid males. The role of workers may change with their age, and in some species, such as honeypot ants, young workers are fed until their gasters are distended and act as living food storage vessels. These food storage workers are called repletes. 54. For instance, these replete workers develop in the North American honeypot ant Myrmecocystus mexicanus. Usually the largest workers in the colony develop into repletes, and if repletes are removed from the colony, other workers become repletes, demonstrating the flexibility of this particular polymorphism. 55. This polymorphism in morphology and behavior of workers initially was thought to be determined by environmental factors such as nutrition and hormones that led to different developmental paths. However, genetic differences between worker castes have been noted in Acromyrmex sp. 56. These polymorphisms are caused by relatively small genetic changes. Differences in a single gene of Solenopsis invicta can decide whether the colony will have single or multiple queens. 57. The Australian jackjumper ant Myrmecia pilosula has only a single pair of chromosomes, with the males having just one chromosome, as they are haploid, the lowest number known for any animal, making it an interesting subject for studies in the genetics and developmental biology of social insects. 58-59 genome size is a fundamental characteristic of an organism. Ants have been found to have tiny genomes, with the evolution of genome size suggested to occur through loss and accumulation of non-coding regions, mainly transposable elements, and occasionally by whole genome duplication. 60. This may be related to colonization processes, but further studies are needed to verify this. 60. Life cycle meat-eater ant nest during swarming life of an ant starts from an egg. If the egg is fertilized, the progeny will be female diploid. If not, it will be male haploid. Ants develop by complete metamorphosis, with the larva stages passing through a pupal stage before emerging as an adult. The larva is largely immobile and is fed and cared for by workers. Food is given to the larvae by trophallaxis, a process in which an ant regurgitates liquid food held in its crop. This is also how adults share food, stored in the social stomach. Larvae, especially in the later stages, may also be provided solid food, such as trophic eggs, pieces of prey, and seeds brought by workers. 61. The larvae grow through a series of 4 or 5 molts and enter the pupal stage. The pupa has the appendages free and not fused to the body as in a butterfly pupa. 62. The differentiation into queens and workers, which are both female, and different castes of workers, is influenced in some species by the nutrition the larvae obtain. Genetic influences and the control of gene expression by the developmental environment are complex, and the determination of caste continues to be a subject of research. 63. Winged male ants, called drones termed aner in old literature. 49. Emerge from pupae alone with the usually winged breeding females. Some species, such as army ants, have wingless queens. Larvae and pupae need to be kept at fairly constant temperatures to ensure proper development, and so often are moved around among the various brood chambers within the colony. 64. A new ergot spends the first few days of its adult life caring for the queen and young. She then graduates to digging and other nest work, and later to defending the nest and foraging. These changes are sometimes fairly sudden, and define what are called temporal castes. Such age-based task specialization or polyethism has been suggested as having evolved due to the high casualties involved in foraging and defense, making it an acceptable risk only for ants who are older and likely to die sooner from natural causes. Of 65-66. In the Brazilian ant Forlius pusillus, the nest entrance is closed from the outside to protect the colony from predatory ant species at sunset each day. About 1 to 8 workers seal the nest entrance from the outside, and they have no chance of returning to the nest and are in effect sacrificed. 67. Whether these seemingly suicidal workers are older workers has not been determined. 68. Ant colonies can be long-lived. The queens can live for up to 30 years, and workers live from 1 to 3 years. Males, however, are more transitory, being quite short-lived and surviving for only a few weeks. 69. Ant queens are estimated to live 100 times as long as solitary insects of a similar size. 70. Ants are active all year long in the tropics. However, in cooler regions, they survive the winter in a state of dormancy known as hibernation. The forms of inactivity are varied, and some temperate species have larvae going into the inactive state diapause, while in others, the adults alone pass the winter in a state of reduced activity. 71. Reproduction. Honey ant Prenolepis in Paris, mating. The drone is much smaller than the queen. A wide range of reproductive strategies have been noted in ant species. Females of many species are known to be capable of reproducing asexually through Thelytokous parthenogenesis. 70. To secretions from the male accessory glands in some species can plug the female genital opening and prevent females from remating. 73. Most ant species have a system in which only the queen and breeding females have. Contrary to popular belief, some ant nests have multiple queens, while others may exist without queens. Workers with the ability to reproduce are called gamergates, and colonies that lack queens are then called gamergate colonies. Colonies with queens are said to be queen-right. 70 for drones can also mate with existing queens by entering a foreign colony, such as an army ants. When the drone is initially attacked by the workers, it releases a mating pheromone. If recognized as a mate, it will be carried to the queen to mate. 75. Males may also patrol the nest and fight others by grabbing them with their mandibles, piercing their exoskeleton, and then marking them with a pheromone. The marked male is interpreted as an invader by worker ants and is killed. 76. Most ants are univoltine, producing a new generation each year. 77. During the species-specific breeding period, winged females and winged males, known to entomologists as alates, leave the colony in what is called a nuptial flight. The nuptial flight usually takes place in the late spring or early summer when the weather is hot and humid. Heat makes flying easier, and freshly fallen rain makes the ground softer for mated queens to dig nests. 78. Males typically take flight before the females. Males then use visual cues to find a common mating ground, for example, a landmark such as a pine tree to which other males in the area converge. Males secrete a mating pheromone that females follow. In C. elegans, workers may transport newly emerged queens to other conspecific nests where the wingless males from unrelated colonies can mate with them, a behavioral adaptation that may reduce the chances of inbreeding. 81. Fertilized meat-eater ant. Queen beginning to dig a new colony. Females then seek a suitable place to begin a colony. There, they break off their wings using their tibial spurs and begin to lay and care for eggs. The first workers to hatch, known as nanotics, 82 are weaker and smaller than later workers, but they begin to serve the colony immediately. They enlarge the nest, forage for food, and care for the other eggs. Species that have multiple queens may have a queen leaving the nest along with some workers to found a colony at a new site. 79. A process akin to swarming in honeybees. Nests, colonies, and supercolonies. Typical ant species has a colony occupying a single nest, housing one or more queens, where the brood is raised. There are, however, more than 150 species of ants in 49 genera that are known to have colonies consisting of multiple spatially separated nests. These polygamous, as opposed to monogamous, colonies have food and workers moving between the nests. 83. Membership to a colony is identified by the response of worker ants, which identify whether an individual belongs to their own colony or not. A signature cocktail of body surface chemicals, also known as cuticular hydrocarbons or CHCs, forms the so-called colony odor, which other members can recognize. 80. For some ant species appear to be less discriminating, and in the Argentine ant Linapithema humal, workers carried from a colony anywhere in the southern U.S. and Mexico are acceptable within other colonies in the same region. Similarly, workers from colonies that have established in Europe are accepted by any other colonies within Europe, but not by the colonies in the Americas. The interpretation of these observations has been debated, and some have been termed these large populations as supercolonies 85, 86, 87, while others have termed the populations as unicolonial. 88. Behavior and ecology communications also. Ant communication to componotus sericeous workers communicating through touch and pheromones. Ants find a dying white cabbage larvae that parasitoid wasps' larvae exited 2 days earlier. Ants communicate with each other using pheromones, sounds, and touch. 89. Since most ants live on the ground, they use the soil surface to leave pheromone trails that may be followed by other ants. In species that forage in groups, a forager that finds food marks a trail on the way back to the colony. This trail is followed by other ants. These ants then reinforce the trail when they head back with food to the colony. When the food source is exhausted, No new trails are marked by returning ants and the scent slowly dissipates. This behavior helps ants deal with changes in their environment. For instance, when an established path to a food source is blocked by an obstacle, the foragers leave the path to explore new routes. If an ant is successful, it leaves a new trail marking the shortest route on its return. Successful trails are followed by more ants, reinforcing better routes and gradually identifying the best path. 8990 ants use pheromones for more than just making trails. A crushed ant emits an alarm pheromone that sends nearby ants into an attack frenzy and attracts more ants from farther away. Several ant species even use propaganda pheromones to confuse enemy ants and make them fight among themselves. 91 pheromones are produced by a wide range of structures including Defoe's glands, poison glands, and glands on the hindgut, pygidium, rectum, sternum, and hind tibia. 70 pheromones also are exchanged, mixed with food, and passed by trophallaxes, transferring information within the colony. 92. This allows other ants to detect what task group, e.g., foraging or nest maintenance, other colony members belong to. 93. In ant species with queen castes, when the dominant queen stops producing a specific pheromone, workers begin to raise new queens in the colony. 90. For some ants produce sounds by stridulation, using the gaster segments and their mandibles. Sounds may be used to communicate with colony members or with other species. 95-96. Defense EZ also, Defense in Insects Aplectroctena sp. attacks another of its kind to protect its territory. Ants attack and defend themselves by biting and, in many species, by stinging, often injecting or spraying chemicals. Bullet ants Paraponera, located in Central and South America, are considered to have the most painful sting of any insect, although it is usually not fatal to humans. This sting is given the highest rating on the Schmidt Sting Pain Index. 97. The sting of jack-jumper ants can be lethal for humans. 98. And an antivenom has been developed for it. 99. Fire ants, Solenopsis spp, are unique in having a venom sac containing piperidin alkaloid. Their stings are painful and can be dangerous to hypersensitive people. 101. Formicine ants secrete a poison from their glands, made mainly of formic acid. 100. To a weaver ant in fighting position. Mandibles wide open trapjaw ants of the genus Odontomachus are equipped with mandibles called trapjaws, which snap shut faster than any other predatory appendages within the animal kingdom. 103. One study of Odontomachus bori recorded peak speeds of between 126 and 230 kilometers per hour, 78 and 143 miles per hour, with the jaws closing within 130 microseconds on average. The ants were also observed to use their jaws as a catapult to eject intruders or fling themselves backward to escape a threat. 103. Before striking, the ant opens its mandibles extremely widely and locks them in this position by an internal mechanism. Energy is stored in a thick band of muscle and explosively released when triggered by the stimulation of sensory organs resembling hairs on the inside of the mandibles. The mandibles also permit slow and fine movements for other tasks. Trapjaws also are seen in other ponerines, such as Anacetus, as well as some genera in the tribe Attini, such as Daston, Orectognathus, and Strumigenes. 103-100 for, which are viewed as examples of convergent evolution. A Malaysian species of ant in the Componotus cylindricus group has enlarged mandibular glands that extend into their gaster. If combat takes a turn for the worse, a worker may perform a final act of suicidal altruism by rupturing the membrane of its gaster, causing the content of its mandibular glands to burst from the anterior region of its head, spraying a poisonous, corrosive secretion containing acetophenones and other chemicals that immobilize small insect attackers. The worker subsequently dies. 105 ant mound holes prevent water from entering the nest during rain. In addition to defense against predators, ants need to protect their colonies from pathogens. Secretions from the metapleural gland, unique to the ants, produce a complex range of chemicals, including several with antibiotic properties. 106. Some worker ants maintain the hygiene of the colony, and their activities include undertaking, or necrophoresis, the disposal of dead nestmates. 107. Oleic acid has been identified as the compound released from dead ants that triggers necrophoric behavior in Atta mexicana. 108. While workers of Linapithema humal react to the absence of characteristic chemicals dolichodial and iridomyrmecin present on the cuticle of their living nestmates to trigger similar behavior. 109. In Megapanera onalis, injured ants are treated by nestmates with secretions from their metapleural glands which protect them from infection. 110. Componotus ants do not have a metapleural gland. 106. And Componotus maculatus, as well as C. floridanus workers, have been found to amputate the affected legs of nestmates when the femur is injured. A femur injury carries a greater risk of infection, unlike a tibia injury. 111. Nests may be protected from physical threats, such as flooding and overheating, by elaborate nest architecture. 112. 113. Workers of Catulicus muticus, an arboreal species that lives in plant hollows, respond to flooding by drinking water inside the nest and excreting it outside. 114. Componotus andersini, which nests in the cavities of wood in mangrove habitats, deals with submergence underwater by switching to anaerobic respiration. 115. Learning to weaver ants walking in tandem. Many animals can learn behaviors by imitation, but ants may be the only group apart from mammals where interactive teaching has been observed. A knowledgeable forager of Temnothorax albipennis can lead a naive nestmate to newly discovered food by the process of tandem running. The follower obtains knowledge through its leading tutor. The leader is acutely sensitive to the progress of the follower and slows down when the follower lags and speeds up when the follower gets too close. 116. Controlled experiments with colonies of Surapachis biroi suggest that an individual may choose nest roles based on her previous experience. An entire generation of identical workers was divided into two groups whose outcome in food foraging was controlled. One group was continually rewarded with prey, while it was made certain that the other failed. As a result, members of the successful group intensified their foraging attempts, while the unsuccessful group ventured out fewer and fewer times. A month later, the successful foragers continued in their role, while the others had moved to specialize in brood care. 117. Nest construction mine article. Ant colony leaf nest of weaver ants, Pomalican, Philippines complex nests are built by many ant species, but other species are nomadic and do not build permanent structures. Ants may form subterranean nests or build them on trees. These nests may be found in the ground, under stones or logs, inside logs, hollow stems, or even acorns. The materials used for construction include soil and plant matter. 79. And ants carefully select their nest sites. Temnothorax albipennis will avoid sites with dead ants, as these may indicate the presence of pests or disease. They are quick to abandon established nests at the first sign of threats. 118. The army ants of South America, such as the Echiton species, and the driver ants of Africa do not build permanent nests, but instead alternate between nomadism and stages where the workers form a temporary nest bivouac from their own bodies by holding each other together. 119. Weaver ant Ocophila spp. Workers build nests in trees by attaching leaves together, first pulling them together with bridges of workers, and then inducing their larvae to produce silk as they are moved along the leaf edges. Similar forms of nest construction are seen in some species of polyarhatches. 120. Antbridge formica polyctona, among other ant species, constructs nests that maintain a relatively constant interior temperature that aids in the development of larvae. The ants maintain the nest temperature by choosing the location, nest materials, controlling ventilation, and maintaining the heat from solar radiation, worker activity, and metabolism. and in some moist nests, microbial activity in the nest materials. 121. 122. Some ant species, such as those that use natural cavities, can be opportunistic and make use of the controlled microclimate provided inside human dwellings and other artificial structures to house their colonies and nest structures. 123. 124. Cultivation of food. Mine article. Ant fungus Mutualis myrmicus, honeypot ants, store food to prevent colony famine. Most ants are generalist predators, scavengers, and indirect herbivores, 19, but a few have evolved specialized ways of obtaining nutrition. It is believed that many ant species that engage in indirect herbivory rely on specialized symbiosis with their gut microbes, 125, to upgrade the nutritional value of the food they collect, 126, and allow them to survive in nitrogen-poor regions, such as rainforest canopies. 127. Leafcutter ants Atta and Acromyrmex feed exclusively on a fungus that grows only within their colonies. They continually collect leaves, which are taken to the colony, cut into tiny pieces, and placed in fungal gardens. Ergots specialize in related tasks according to their sizes. The largest ants cut stalks, smaller workers chew the leaves, and the smallest tend the fungus. Leafcutter ants are sensitive enough to recognize the reaction of the fungus to different plant material, apparently detecting chemical signals from the fungus. If a particular type of leaf is found to be toxic to the fungus, the colony will no longer collect it. The ants feed on structures produced by the fungi called Gongylidia. Symbiotic bacteria on the exterior surface of the ants produce antibiotics that kill bacteria introduced into the nest that may harm the fungi. 128. Navigation and ant trail foraging. Ants travel distances of up to 200 meters, 700 feet, from their nest. 129, and scent trails allow them to find their way that in hot and arid regions. Day foraging. Ants face death by desiccation, so the ability to find the shortest route back to the nest reduces that risk. Diurnal desert ants of the genus Cataglyphus, such as the Sahara desert ant, navigate by keeping track of direction as well as distance traveled. Distances traveled are measured using an internal pedometer that keeps count of the steps taken, 130, and also by evaluating the movement of objects in their visual field optical flow. 131. Directions are measured using the position of the sun. 132. They integrate this information to find the shortest route back to their nest. 133. Like all ants, they can also make use of visual landmarks when available. 134. As well as olfactory and tactile cues to navigate. 135. 136. Some species of ant are able to use the Earth's magnetic field for navigation. The compound eyes of ants have specialized cells that detect polaris light from the sun, which is used to determine direction. 138. 139. These polarization detectors are sensitive in the ultraviolet region of the light spectrum. 140. In some army ant species, a group of foragers who become separated from the main column may sometimes turn back on themselves and form a circular ant mill. The workers may then run around continuously until they die of exhaustion. 141. Locomotion. They female worker ants do not have wings, and reproductive females lose their wings after their mating flights in order to begin their colonies. Therefore, unlike their wasp ancestors, most ants travel by walking. Some species are capable of leaping. For example, Jordan's jumping ant Harpagnothos saltator is able to jump by synchronizing the action of its mid and hind pairs of legs. 142. There are several species of gliding ant, including Cephalocetratus. This may be a common trait among arboreal ants with small colonies. Ants with this ability are able to control their horizontal movement so as to catch tree trunks when they fall from atop the forest canopy. 143. Other species of ants can form chains to bridge gaps over water, underground, or through spaces in vegetation. Some species also form floating rafts that help them survive floods. 144. These rafts may also have a role in allowing ants to colonize islands. 145. Polyarchus sokolova, a species of ant found in Australian mangrove swamps, can swim and live in underwater nests. Since they lack gills, they go to trapped pockets of air in the submerged nests to breathe. 146. Cooperation and competition. Eater ants feeding on a cicada. Social ants cooperate and collectively gather food. Not all ants have the same kind of societies. The Australian bulldog ants are among the biggest and most basal of ants. Like virtually all ants, they are eusocial, but their social behavior is poorly developed compared to other species. Each individual hunts alone, using her large eyes instead of chemical senses to find prey. 147. Some species attack and take over neighboring ant colonies. Ants identify kin and nestmates through their scent, which comes from hydrocarbon-laced secretions that coat their exoskeletons. If an ant is separated from its original colony, it will eventually lose the colony scent. Any ant that enters a colony without a matching scent will be attacked. 150. Parasitic ant species enter the colonies of host ants and establish themselves as social parasites. Species such as Strumigene xenos are entirely parasitic and do not have workers, but instead rely on the food gathered by their Strumigenes perplexa hosts. 151. 152. This form of parasitism is seen across many ant genera, but the parasitic ant is usually a species that is closely related to its host. A variety of methods are employed to enter the nest of the host ant. A parasitic queen may enter the host nest before the first brood has hatched, establishing herself prior to development of a colony scent. Other species use pheromones to confuse the host ants or to trick them into carrying the parasitic queen into the nest. Some simply fight their way into the nest. 153. A conflict between the sexes of a species is seen in some species of ants, with these reproducers apparently competing to produce offspring that are as closely related to them as possible. The most extreme form involves the production of clonal offspring. An extreme of sexual conflict is seen in Wasmannia oropunctata, where the queens produce diploid daughters by Thelytokous parthenogenesis, and males produce clones by a process whereby a diploid egg loses its maternal contribution to produce haploid males who are clones of the father. 154. Relationships with other organisms. Spider murmurat and platyloids. Female shown mimics weaver ants to avoid predators. Ants form symbiotic associations with a range of species, including other ant species, other insects, plants, and fungi. They also are preyed on by many animals and even certain fungi. Some arthropod species spend part of their lives within ant nests, either preying on ants, their larvae, and eggs, consuming the food stores of the ants, or avoiding predators. These inquilins may bear a close resemblance to ants. The nature of this ant mimicry myrmecomorphy varies, with some cases involving Batesian mimicry, where the mimic reduces the risk of predation. Others show Wasmannian mimicry, a form of mimicry seen only in inquilins. 155. 156. An ant collects honeydew from an aphidoration, 2 minutes and 9 seconds. To 09. Ants collecting honeydew from calico scales Eulicanium churrosorum, then played at 30 times speed to show the pumping action of the scale. Aphids and other hemipteran insects secrete a sweet liquid called honeydew when they feed on plant sap. The sugars in honeydew are a high-energy food source, which many ant species collect. 157. In some cases, the aphids secrete the honeydew in response to ants tapping them with their antennae. The ants in turn keep predators away from the aphids and will move them from one feeding location to another. When migrating to a new area, many colonies will take the aphids with them to ensure a continued supply of honeydew. Ants also tend mealybugs to harvest their honeydew. Mealybugs may become a serious pest of pineapples if ants are present to protect mealybugs from their natural enemies. 158 myrmecophilous ant-loving caterpillars of the butterfly family Lichenidae, e.g., blues, cuppers, or hairstrakes, are herded by the ants, led to feeding areas in the daytime, and brought inside the ant's nest at night. The caterpillars have a gland which secretes honeydew when the ants massage them. The chemicals in the secretions of Narothera japonica alter the behavior of attendant Pristomyrmex punctatus workers, making them less aggressive and stationary. The relationship, formerly characterized as mutualistic, is now considered as possibly a case of the ants being parasitically manipulated by the caterpillars. 159. Some caterpillars produce vibrations and sounds that are perceived by the ants. 160. A similar adaptation can be seen in grizzled skipper butterflies that emit vibrations by expanding their wings in order to communicate with ants, which are natural predators of these butterflies. 161. Other caterpillars have evolved from ant-loving to ant-eating. These myrmecophagous caterpillars secrete a pheromone that makes the ants act as if the caterpillar is one of their own larvae. The caterpillar is then taken into the ant nest, where it feeds on the ant larvae. 162. A number of specialized bacteria have been found as endosymbionts in ant guts. Some of the dominant bacteria belong to the order Hyphomicrobials, whose members are known for being nitrogen-fixing symbionts in legumes, but the species found in ants lack the ability to fix nitrogen. 163. 160 for fungus-growing ants that make up the tribe Attini, including leafcutter ants, cultivate certain species of fungus in the genera Leucoagaricus or Leucocaprinus of the family, Agaricaceae. In this ant fungus mutualism, both species depend on each other for survival. The ant Allomeris decimal collecting honeydew secreted. A wrinkled solder beetle flies in and eats an aphid before being chased away by the ants. Lemon ants make devil's gardens by killing surrounding plants with their stings and leaving a pure patch of lemon ant trees, Duroia hirsuta. This modification of the forest provides the ants with more nesting sites inside the stems of the Duroia trees. 166. Although some ants obtain nectar from flowers, pollination by ants is somewhat rare. One example being of the pollination of the orchid Leporella fimbriata, which induces male Myrmecia urens to pseudocopulate with the flowers, transferring pollen in the process. 167. One theory that has been proposed for the rarity of pollination is that the secretions of the metapleural gland inactivate and reduce the viability of pollen. 168. 169. Some plants, mostly angiosperms, but also some ferns, 170 have special nectar-exuding structures, extrafloral nectaries, that provide food for ants, which in turn protect the plant from more damaging herbivorous insects. 171 species, such as the bullhorn acacia, Acacia carnigera, in Central America have hollow thorns that house colonies of stinging ants, Pseudomyrmex ferruginea, who defend the tree against insects, browsing mammals, and epiphytic vines. Isotopic labeling studies suggest that plants also obtain nitrogen from the ants. 172. In return, the ants obtain food from protein and lipid-rich Beltian bodies. In Fiji, Philidris Nagasog dolichoderinae are known to selectively grow species of epiphytic Squamularia rubiacea, which produce large domatia inside which the ant colonies nest. The ants plant the seeds and the domatia of young seedling are immediately occupied and the ant feces in them contribute to rapid growth. 173. Similar dispersal associations are found with other dolichoderans in the region as well. 174. Another example of this type of ectosymbiosis comes from the macaranga tree, which has stems adapted to house colonies of Chromatogaster ants. 175. Many plant species have seeds that are adapted for dispersal by ants. 176. Seed dispersal by ants or myrmecophagous is widespread, and new estimates suggest that nearly 9% of all plant species may have such ant associations. 177. 176. Often, Seed-dispersing ants perform directed dispersal, depositing the seeds in locations that increase the likelihood of seed survival to reproduction. 178. Some plants in arid, fire-prone systems are particularly dependent on ants for their survival and dispersal as the seeds are transported to safety below the ground. 179. Many ant-dispersed seeds have special external structures, eliosomes, that are sought after by ants as food. 180. Ants can substantially alter rate of decomposition and nutrient cycling in their nest. 181.18. To by myrmecochory and modification of soil conditions, they substantially alter vegetation and nutrient cycling in surrounding ecosystem. 183. A convergence, possibly a form of mimicry, is seen in the eggs of stick insects. They have an edible eliosome-like structure and are taken into the ant nest where the young hatch. 180. For a meat ant tending a common leafhopper nymph, old jumping spider Phoedippus audax with a cutworm tribe Noctuini, and then lost to ants family. Formicidae. Ants from different colonies stealed a cranefly that a pair of long-jawed orb weaver spiders were consuming. Most ants are predatory, and some prey on and obtain food from other social insects including other ants. Some species specialize in preying on termites, Megaponera, and Termitopone, while a few Chirapacinae prey on other ants. 129. Some termites, including Nasutiderms corniger, form associations with certain ant species to keep away predatory ant species. 185. The tropical wasp Miscositaris drusini coats the pedicel of its nest with an antropellant chemical. 186. It is suggested that many tropical wasps may build their nests in trees and cover them to protect themselves from ants. Other wasps, such as A. multipicta, defend against ants by blasting them off the nest with bursts of wing buzzing. 187. Stingless bees Trigona and Melipona use chemical defenses against ants. 129. Flies in the Old World genus Bengalia Califeridae prey on ants and are kleptoparasites, snatching prey or brood from the mandibles of adult ants. 188. Wingless and legless females of the Malaysian forward fly Vestigipoda myrmelarvoidea live in the nests of ants of the genus Anactus and are cared for by the ants. 188. Ocophilus smaragdina killed by a fungi in the genera Cordyceps and Opiocordyceps infect ants. Ants react to their infection by climbing up plants and sinking their mandibles into plant tissue. The fungus kills the ants, grows on their remains, and produces a fruiting body. It appears that the fungus alters the behavior of the ant to help disperse its spores. 189. In a microhabitat that best suits the fungus. 190. Strepsipteran parasites also manipulate their ant host to climb grass stems to help the parasite find mates. 191. A nematode Myrmeconum neotropicum that infects canopy. Ant Cephalotes causes the black-colored gasters of workers to turn red. The parasite also alters the behavior of the ant, causing them to carry their gasters high. The conspicuous red gasters are mistaken by birds for ripe fruits, such as Hieronema alcornioides, and eaten. The droppings of the bird are collected by other ants and fed to their young, leading to further spread of the nematode. 192. South American poison dart frogs in the genus Dendrobates feed mainly on ants, and the toxins in the skin of some species come from the ants. 194. 195 formicine ants in the genera Brachymyrmex and Paratrichina have been found to contain Pumila toxin found in Dendrobates pumilio. 196. The West African frog Phrenomanthes microps is able to move within the nests of Paltophyrius tarsatus ants, producing peptides on its skin that prevent the ants from stinging them. 197. Army ants, which is the toxin found in forage in a wide roving column, attacking any animals in that path that are unable to escape. In Central and South America, Echiton burkeli is the swarming ant most commonly attended by ant-following birds such as antbirds and woodcreepers. 198. 199. This behavior was once considered mutualistic, but later studies found the birds to be parasitic. Direct kleptoparasitism, birds stealing food from the ant's grasp, is rare and has been noted in Inca doves, which pick seeds at nest entrances as they are being transported by species of Pogona myrmex. 200 birds that follow ants eat many prey insects and thus decrease the foraging success of ants. 201 birds indulge in a peculiar behavior called anting that, as yet, is not fully understood. Here birds rest on ant nests, or pick and drop ants onto their wings and feathers. This may be a means to remove ectoparasites from the birds. Anteaters, aardvarks, pangolins, echidnas, and numbats have special adaptations for living on a diet of ants. Long, sticky tongues to capture ants and strong claws to break into ant nests. Brown bears Ursus arctos have been found to feed on ants. About 12%, 16%, and 4% of their fecal volume in spring, summer, and autumn, respectively, is composed of ants. 202. Relationship with humans. Weaver ants are used as a biological control for citrus cultivation in southern China. Ants perform many ecological roles that are beneficial to humans, including the suppression of pest populations and aeration of the soil. The use of weaver ants in citrus cultivation in southern China is considered one of the oldest known applications of biological control. 203. On the other hand, ants may become nuisances when they invade buildings or cause economic losses. In some parts of the world, mainly Africa and South America, large ants, especially army ants, are used as surgical sutures. The wound is pressed together and ants are applied along it. The ant seizes the edges of the wound in its mandibles and locks in place. The body is then cut off and the head and mandibles remain in place to close the wound. 204, 205, 206. The large heads of the dinergate soldiers of the leaf-cutting ant atacephalotes are also used by native surgeons in closing wounds. 207. Some ants have toxic venom and are of medical importance. The species include Paraponera clavata tocandira and Dinoponera spp. False tocandiras of South America. 208. And the Myrmecia ants of Australia. 209. In South Africa, ants are used to help harvest the seeds of Rooibos aspalathus linearis, a plant used to make a herbal tea. The plant disperses its seeds widely, making manual collection difficult. Black ants collect and store these and other seeds in their nest, where humans can gather them en masse. Up to half a pound to 100 grams of seeds may be collected from one ant heap. 210 to 111. Although most ants survive attempts by humans to eradicate them, a few are highly endangered. These tend to be island species that have evolved specialized traits and risk being displaced by introduced ant species. Examples include the critically endangered Sri Lankan relict ant Anuretus simoni and Adidomyrma venatrix of Madagascar. 212. As food, see also entomophagiristid ants in Colombian larvae for Ceylonizan, Thailandans, and their larvae are eaten in different parts of the world. The eggs of two species of ants are used in Mexican Eskimos. They are considered a form of insect caviar and can sell for as much as $50 United States dollars per kilogram, going up to $200 United States dollars per kg as of 2006, because they are seasonal and hard to find. In the Colombian department of Santander, Hormigas colonas, roughly interpreted as large-bottomed ants, Atalevagata, are toasted alive and eaten. 214. In areas of India and throughout Burma and Thailand, a paste of the green weaver ant Ocophila smaragdina is served as a condiment with curry. 215. Weaver ant eggs and larvae, as well as the ants, may be used in a Thai salad, yam Thai, in a dish called yam kai mat dang Thai, or red ant egg salad, a dish that comes from the Isan or northeastern Savokent. In The Naturalist in Australia wrote, beauty, in the case of the green ant, is more than skin deep. They're attractive, almost sweetmeat-like translucency, possibly invited the first essays at their consumption by the human species. Mashed up in water, after the manner of lemon squash, these ants form a pleasant acid drink which is held in high favor by the natives of North Queensland, and is even appreciated by many European palates. 216. Ants or their pupae are used as starters for yogurt making in parts of Bulgaria and Turkey. 217. In his first summer in the Sierra, John Muir notes that the Digger Indians of California ate the tickling, acid gasters of the large jet-black carpenter ants. The Mexican Indians eat the repletes, or living honeypots, of the honey ant Myrmecocystus. 216. As pests also, ants of medical importance. The tiny pharaoh ant is a major pest in hospitals and office blocks. It can make nests between sheets of paper. Some ant species are considered as pests, primarily those that occur in human habitations, where their presence is often problematic. For example, the presence of ants would be undesirable in sterile places, such as hospitals or kitchens. Some species or genera commonly categorized as pests include the Argentine ant, immigrant pavement ant, yellow crazy ant, banded sugar ant, pharaoh ant, redwood ant, black carpenter ant, odorous house ant, red imported fire ant, and European fire ant. Some ants will raid stored food. Some will seek water sources. Others may damage indoor structures. Some may damage agricultural crops directly or by aiding sucking pests. Some will sting or bite. 218. The adaptive nature of ant colonies make it nearly impossible to eliminate entire colonies, and most pest management practices aim to control local populations and tend to be temporary solutions. Ant populations are managed by a combination of approaches that make use of chemical, biological, and physical methods. Chemical methods include the use of insecticidal bait, which is gathered by ants as food and brought back to the nest, where the poison is inadvertently spread to other colony members. Through trophallaxis, management is based on the species and techniques may vary according to the location and circumstance. 218. In science and technology also, myrmecology, biomimetics, and ant colony optimization algorithms. Scampintus nercticus workers traveling between to Formicaria through connector tubing, observed by humans since the dawn of history. The behavior of ants has been documented and the subject of early writings and fables passed from one century to another. Those using scientific methods, myrmecologists, study ants in the laboratory and in their natural conditions. Their complex and variable social structures have made ants ideal model organisms. Ultraviolet vision was first discovered in ants by Sir John Lubbock in 1881. 219 studies on ants have tested hypotheses in ecology and sociobiology, and have been particularly important in examining the predictions of theories of kin selection and evolutionarily stable strategies. 220 ant colonies may be studied by rearing or temporarily maintaining them in Formicaria, specially constructed glass-framed enclosures. 221 individuals may be tracked for study by marking them with dots of colors. 222. The successful techniques used by ant colonies have been studied in computer science and robotics to produce distributed and fault-tolerant systems for solving problems. For example, ant colony optimization and ant robotics. This area of biomimetics has led to studies of ant locomotion, search engines that make use of foraging trails, fault-tolerant storage, and networking algorithms. 223. As Pet's main article, Ant Keeping from the late 1950s through the late 1970s, ant farms were popular educational children's toys in the United States. Some later commercial versions used transparent gel instead of soil, allowing greater visibility at the cost of stressing the ants with unnatural light. 224. In culture, Aesop's ants, anthropomorphous ants, have often been used in fables, children's stories, and religious texts to represent industriousness and cooperative effort, such as in the Aesop fable The Ant and the Grasshopper. 225. 226. In the Quran, Suleiman is said to have heard and understood an ant warning other ants to return home to avoid being accidentally crushed by Suleiman and his marching army. Quran 27-18, 227-228. In parts of Africa, ants are considered to be the messengers of the deities. Some Native American mythology, such as the Hopi mythology, considers ants as the first animals. Ant bites are often said to have curative properties. The sting of some species of Pseudomyrmex is claimed to give fever relief. 229. Ant bites are used in the initiation ceremonies of some Amazon Indian cultures as a test of endurance. 230-231. In Greek mythology, the goddess Athena turned the maiden Myrmex into an ant when the latter claimed to have invented the plow, when in fact it was Athena's own invention. 230. To an ant pictured in the coat of arms of Molcha, a town in Finlandian society has always fascinated humans and has been written about both humorously and seriously. Mark Twain wrote about ants in his 1880 book A Tramp Abroad. 233. Some modern authors have used the example of the ants to comment on the relationship between society and the individual. Examples are Robert Frost in his poem Departmental and T.H. White in his fantasy novel The Once and Future King. The plot in French entomologist and writer Bernard Werber's Les Fourmis science fiction trilogy is divided between the worlds of ants and humans. Ants and their behavior are described using contemporary scientific knowledge. H.G. Wells wrote about intelligent ants destroying human settlements in Brazil and threatening human civilization in his 1905 science fiction short story, The Empire of the Ants. A similar German story involving army ants, Leiningen versus the Ants, was written in 1937 and recreated in movie form as The Naked Jungle in 1954. 234. In more recent times, animated cartoons and 3D animated films featuring ants have been produced, including Ants, A Bug's Life, The Ant Bully, The Ant and the Aardvark, Ferdy the Ant, and Adam Ant. Renowned myrmecologist E.O. Wilson wrote a short story, Trailhead, in 2010 for the New Yorker magazine, which describes the life and death of an ant queen and the rise and fall of her colony from an ant's point of view. 235. Ants also are quite popular inspiration for many science fiction insectoids, such as the Formix of Ender's Game, the bugs of Starship Troopers, the giant ants in the films Them, and Empire of the Ants, Marvel Comics superhero Ant-Man, and ants mutated into superintelligence in Phase 4. In computer strategy games, ant-based species often benefit from increased production rates due to their single-minded focus, such as the Klakens in the Master of Orion series of games or the Chtin Deadlock 2. These characters are often credited with a hive mind, a common misconception about ant colonies. 236. In the early 1990s, the video game Simont, which simulated an ant colony, won the 1990 Cody Award for Best Simulation Program. 237. Thanks for watching.